Hello everyone, and welcome back to the College of Law Admission to Practice Academy 2020. We're delighted to be here with you today, and I know you've been enjoying lots of fabulous sessions through the course of this week, so welcome back to this one on preparing for the future of law. We're going to really have that topic or discuss that topic in two parts, one looking at the future of legal practice and the other one looking at new capabilities for lawyers. Sometimes you get exceptionally lucky and fortunate. Today is one of those with this amazing panel that you're going to hear from. And they're going to kick off by introducing themselves and also talking a little bit about their work. So you have a context of where they're coming from and the work that they do on a day-to-day basis. So I get the real easy part to start with, and just to say welcome Anna, Caryn, Evan and Jess, and then to hand over effectively to kick us off to Anna, who's going to tell us about who she is and what she does and her organisation and the work she does as well. So first and foremost, welcome everybody. Absolute delight to have you. Welcome everybody who's joined us. Don't forget to hit that Q&A button at any time at the bottom of the screen there if you have a question that you would like to pose, and we'll pick those up to you. So Anna, hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks Terry. Thanks for the intro and welcome everyone. This is the highlight of my week, being on this panel and speaking with you all. I love engaging with law students, so very much looking forward to your questions. My name is Anna, as Terry mentioned, and I am the General Counsel for L'Oreal Australia and New Zealand. I have a very small team. There's only 4 of us, 3 lawyers and an admin coordinator. And we have 30 brands here in Australia and 20 brands in New Zealand. And we also support the corporate functions, so operations, supply chain, purchasing, HR, the media team, and anything else you can throw to sort of shared services. We play a volume and velocity game. So we have had record months in terms of workload with the COVID pandemic. So last month was our record month with 185 new matters across the team. So we work for a very fast-paced and dynamic business, and they want legal advice as quickly as possible. And that means that we got onto that early. And so 5 years ago, we launched a lot of technology, which has culminated in us having about 16 apps. So anything from an automated agreement to an automated checklist, which very much complements the work that we do. We've seen that through our data. We have a matter management system. And if I look at our latest stats, our lawyers are actually spending 70% of their time on medium to high risk matters, aka the interesting matters for the business. Because we've really used technology to automate the routine kind of, high brain requirement, but not very interesting work. So we're jacks of all trades and masters of none. Every day is different. And, it's really about us problem solving. That's how I see us. I don't just see us as lawyers. I very much see us as problem solvers. So I hope that gives you a bit of a sense of our in-house life.
Brilliant, Anna. We're going to pick up a number of those themes as we go through chatting today. But folks, I should also mention that Anna's leadership and her team has really been a pioneer in this area of working quite differently. So it's just fabulous having you here with us today. Caryn, likewise, tell us about you and what you do in your firm.
Thank you, Terry, and welcome everyone. Obviously delighted to be here talking to you today. As Terry mentioned, I'm Caryn Sandler, and I'm a partner and the Chief Knowledge and Innovation Officer at Gilbert and Tobin. For those of you who aren't familiar, Gilbert and Tobin is a large law firm, a national law firm. So we've got offices in Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. And we really focus on really strategic matters across the disputes, regulatory, as well as transactional space. So my role, I've got quite a large team, over sort of 60 people. The team has both an internal as well as an external focus. So really the internal focus is looking at ways in which we can optimise delivery of legal services to our clients. So whether it be improving process for our lawyers and the way in which they undertake their work, whether it be, identifying opportunities to leverage technology, of which we have actually implemented a lot of technology within the firm. We've sometimes actually developed our own technology, or alternately gone to the market and we've brought in third-party technology. And we also do a significant capability uplift, throughout the firm. So, and we'll talk about this no doubt later on in the session, but really around what are the skill sets for the future. So we focus very heavily on that with our lawyers, and my team is very much sort of responsible for that alongside our learning and capability team. On the client side, we actually about 2 years ago or so started working with in-house legal teams to optimise their own sort of functions. And as you would have just heard from Anna, who's been very involved in that space, we have an offering, for example, that we can go into teams and really support them on their own transformation journey. And we've worked with really large organisations from ASX listed sort of entities all the way to smaller organisations. So that's really the team, and hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour as to where we're coming at it from today.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. And the really interesting thing about the G&T journey in a way is that you've almost shared that with your clients all the way along, even to the point of actually creating different revenue streams for your firm. So it's just a fascinating journey that if you haven't heard the G&T journey before, you'll hear a little bit more about it today, but really just amazing. Jess, I'm coming to you next. Tell us about you.
Thanks, Terry, and welcome everyone. My name's Jessica Andriacchio, and I lead the dispute and resolution team at Law Squared. We practice in the area of commercial litigation and insolvency. For those that aren't aware, Law Squared is different from the traditional law firm. We're an innovative firm that fall under the banner of new law with a national presence. So, in terms of looking at the differences between new law and traditional law, we don't operate on billable hours, but rather fixed fees. We don't have individual budgets, but rather team budgets. And we've removed the hierarchical structure in terms of title to really help promote staff to find their strengths and really work on what those are, irrespective of what their titles may be. In addition to that, I am a national accredited mediator and a chair of the Law Institute ADR committee. I have a very big passion in the alternative dispute resolution space. And to complement that, I'm also a teacher at university in the law faculty in both civil procedure and ADR. So that's a bit of a snapshot as to, my background.
Fantastic, Jess. Thank you. And I think, Law Squared really has been one of those so-called new law firms that started differently from the very beginning and just keeps pushing the envelope there. So congratulations, and thank you very much for being with us. And last but certainly not least, Evan, over to you.
Thanks, Terry. Hey, everyone. So my name's Evan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Checkbox. So I'm here today to represent a very different lens of the legal industry. I come from, the technology vendor side. My background is I actually graduated from law school myself a few years ago at the end of 2015. And prior to that, I actually founded another business, not related to law. It was in the education space called Hero Education. But that made me fall in love with entrepreneurship and really creating new things to change the world for the better. So when I finished law school, I jumped straight into founding Checkbox. And it's now been about 4 years since I started that journey. And what we do at Checkbox is we effectively help legal professionals build their own software without coding by just using drag and drop. And this is really important, as you can imagine, because technology is becoming such a big part of the legal industry. Yet lawyers aren't necessarily trained traditionally to be programmers or even have that technology literacy to serve their clients better. So we kind of empower them with the platform, both on the in-house side. So we work with a lot of the kind of corporate teams, as well as the law firm side as well. Caryn here is one of our clients as well. So that's what we do, and yeah, pleasure to be here. Really excited to talk about, I guess, the technology lens, but also the career paths that lawyers can take in today's modern world.
And Evan, I mean, apart from the fabulous work that you're obviously doing at Checkbox, I think, you personally represent that opportunity for law students now, before they even become grads, to be thinking about entrepreneurship, to be thinking about doing things differently. And we're going to get into that a little bit more, but your journey is fascinating for many, many reasons. But I think, for that one, particularly for our group today. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, everyone. Folks, as I said, we're going to kind of have a look at this, firstly, to kind of set the scene a little bit in terms of what's changing in legal practice. And I guess one of the really important things about that, and I'm sure you'll hear this mentioned by all the folks here on the panel, is just the importance for law students and early career professionals more than ever before to really be aware of the changes that are taking place in the marketplace and to kind of jump all over them in the best way that they possibly can. So with that in mind, and before getting into capabilities, we wanted to just spend a few minutes on what's changed and what's changing, so that you can get that feel in the context in terms of the capabilities discussion that will come later. So Caryn, I wanted to throw to you, if I may, first on this one. We hear lots of ways to describe the marketplace that we have now. It's legal industry, legal profession. I guess the one at the moment is legal ecosystem. It's more than just a name, though. I think it's representing really quite a different marketplace than what we were used to. Could we hear your thoughts a little about that? I mean, why are we calling it a legal ecosystem and not one of those older terms?
Yeah, sure, Terri. So I think it's a really interesting one, and I certainly think we are in the initial stages of moving towards a legal sort of ecosystem. And I think what's driving that use of term is really around, I suppose, this move from labour to labour and capital. And what I mean by that is, historically, and certainly, I was an equity capital markets and M&A lawyer for many, many years, both here and in the UK. And if I reflect on my time in legal, it really was about lawyers only delivering legal services. And now we're moving into a world where actually technology is capable of delivering some component of that legal service. And I don't only talk about technology, so that is one aspect, but I think that is one of the drivers to move to a legal ecosystem. And if I reflect upon, for example, my own team, I lead a team, as I mentioned, the Legal Service Innovation team. If I think about who is involved in that team, I've got legal project managers. So they might be lawyers who've now moved into a project management type of role, but many of them are project managers and professional project managers. We've also got knowledge management. So many of you would be familiar with knowledge management, but our team, we actually refer to them as knowledge management or knowledge and practice innovation, because obviously that is having a significant impact in the way in which we deliver legal services, leveraging technology. Data analytics is another one. So there are a whole combination of skill sets, legal transformation as well. And for many of you who probably aren't familiar with a model that came out back in 2016, I always like to reference this, and if you have an opportunity after the session to actually go and Google it, Boston Consulting came up with a model of the law firm of today versus the law firm of the future. And if you look at that, it looks very different. So I'll explain to you a little bit about it. Basically, it is effectively a triangle, and it's made up of a pyramid of lawyers. So effectively, you move from graduate all the way to partner within a law firm. And that is, and still to some degree, is the current model within law firms. What they are suggesting is going forward, to meet this issue of sort of a move from labour to capital, is there will definitely be a drive of having a combination of skill sets to deliver legal services. And what I mean by that is that if you need to deliver a piece of work, let's say, for example, it might be a share acquisition. You know, you will require, of course, legal expertise, but you might be using technology, whether it be AI or an automated system, to assist, for example, on the due diligence components. And that might require somebody with a transformation specialism, or it might require, and probably would require technology as well. So you need, you know, what they call sort of like tech wranglers, or people who can actually support that as well. So it is this combination of skill sets, I believe, certainly, that will drive the way in which we deliver legal services in the future. And if I reflect on how we're seeing that play out at G&T, it is very rare today to just have our lawyers in isolation delivering legal services to their clients. They are contacting my team, whether it be my data analytics team, or you know, those who have expertise in e-discovery, whether it be my transformation team who has expertise in our due diligence systems and AI, whether it be project managers who help support really large matters. It is a combination now of those skill sets that will deliver the legal services. So I think, Terry, in answer to your question, we really are moving to a world of, yes, absolutely, legal expertise is going to be critical and always will be critical, but you are starting to see these sort of professions as well, sort of alongside legal professionals deliver that legal service.
Thanks, Caryn. Anna, I can only imagine that this is even more acute, this focus on a multidisciplinary approach to the delivery of services in an in-house legal team, because you're servicing a corporation where all of these folks exist. So how has that kind of changed the nature of perhaps of your workforce, or how you work in-house?
Sure. So I was listening intently, Caryn, and very envious of all the resources that you have, because everything that Caryn just mentioned, we have to do as a team of 4. So I think what's changed dramatically, particularly over the last 25 years, is we've seen the rise of in-house. So when I was going through 16 years ago as a graduate, secondments were very much into businesses, were very much regarded as a bit cushy, because in-house legal jobs were kind of, oh, you're moving for lifestyle reasons. And I can confidently say that I've billed more billable hours, if I had to track them, in-house, you know, versus what I did, you know, at a top tier firm. So it's no longer cushy. It's actually becoming very complex. Good general counsels are being very, you know, I sit on the executive team, so I'm not a, you know, we call it a T. So I bring my functional expertise, but I really need to sit in this T, which is my leadership capability. So there's very much an expectation that, yes, you are good at your technical expertise, but you have to have the leadership elements. And you know, to summarize that, what I'm talking about is TQ, so technical intelligence, EQ, which is the emotional intelligence. And boy, has that come into play even more during COVID, as we've realised that we need to be more human beings than human doings. And the third component is the IQ 2.0, which is the innovation intelligence. So to Caryn's point, that's not always technology. But I guess the difference in the way that we practice as a team is, as I said earlier, one, we see ourselves as problem solvers. We see ourselves just another person at the table helping to come up with the best solution for whatever the business wants to achieve. We operate with a level of risk appetite, and that's because our business accepts a level of risk. It is not success for an in-house team to cover all the risks. It doesn't work that way. In the same way that a business always adopts an element of risk in things that they're doing, and particularly at L'Oreal, being the world's leading cosmetics company, we're often creating the trends and we're leading the industry. So we're looking at it, we're working with a spirit of continuous improvement. We are being very smart about deciding and prioritising, when does a human lawyer need to play here? Where can technology solve the problem? And every day, with everything that we're doing, we ask ourselves, is there a better way? And that can be from a dollar management perspective, that can be from an efficiency perspective. I'm obsessed with efficiency and systemization. but also working with speed, right? And that's where technology at the moment, outwins a human because of the speed factor. And as I said, we work for a very fast-paced business. So we need to keep up. It's not okay if we don't keep up. So it's becoming more complex because we're wearing more hats. And in fact, there is a very strong component in the way that we lawyer. That means we're looking at the EQ and the IQ 2.0, not just the technical. So when I'm hiring lawyers, I take the technical for granted, but I'm really looking for these new age skills, if you like. I'm testing for mindset. I'm testing for resilience. I'm testing for change management. So does someone actually have the wherewithal to be a change agent? Because they're the kind of lawyers that I want in my team working for our business, that they're comfortable with change. And not only that, they're going to drive change. They're not going to be fearful of it. They're not going to think it's not part of their role. It's very much what success looks like for a new age in-house lawyer.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess, Evan, I want to come to you because I want to really draw out of what Caryn and Anna have been saying about, I guess, this fluidity or integration of skill sets, and whether or not, so I'm going to call it like a multidisciplinary nature now of what it is to be a lawyer, but the opportunities that can also present, you being a living example of exactly that. So is it creating more or additional opportunities for lawyers? And the reason I'm also asking this, Evan, is that there's a fear factor unnecessarily, I believe, around or for students to think that there's not going to be enough jobs. There may not be enough traditional jobs. Yeah. But my question to you is, are there other, maybe even more exciting jobs that kind of bring together the skills and opportunities that Caryn and Anna were speaking to?
Yeah, oh, completely. I think it's such an exciting time to be starting your career in the legal industry right now. From all the conversations so far, the modern day lawyer is a T-shaped lawyer. I think Anna was just talking about that T-shape there, where, and that's really being driven by the complexity, the changing complexity of the industry, as well as primarily driven by the clients. So, clients nowadays are looking so much more at an overall encompassing business solution when they go and look for legal help, whether that's internally in an in-house team or externally with an external law firm. And so lawyers now need to really be able to think holistically and have the skills beyond just the deep legal technical, but to have skills like, the EQ that we were just talking about, the creativity, the problem solving. And what that spins out is a whole bunch of subset of roles and different sort of career paths that lawyers today can actually take up. The traditional path, and I was in law school not too many years ago. And really the only path that everyone was talking about was, let's get into a big private practice law firm. And that was literally the only thing that anyone really thought about as a law student, even just a few years ago. Whereas now there's just so much more opportunity. There's roles like legal project management as being a new kind of title that's being thrown around quite a lot now, because legal work is now becoming more project driven with fixed fee types of work and innovation projects. We need to have the ability to be able to, plan out projects, manage stakeholders and timelines. There's also the whole piece around design thinking has really crash landed into the legal industry. And this is the whole concept of, when we come out of law school, we're thinking so much about the, doing our readings on cases and the legislation and the technical, but in reality, it's about delivering value to the clients. And so design thinking has been a very kind of recent uptake in the legal industry in really designing your services, not just from a technical perspective, but putting yourselves in the shoes of the people that's going to be experiencing that end product or that end service, and being able to go through that kind of lean and agile, I'm throwing buzzwords out now, but lean and agile sort of methodologies of perhaps, pushing things out and getting feedback from your clients and iterating rather than trying to spend forever perfecting a product that may not be fit for purpose by not talking to your clients. So I think there's just so much opportunity now for law students. And I guess my biggest piece of advice is, now with the spectrum of, I guess, opportunities that you can explore, I do challenge law students to really expose themselves to, I guess, different non-traditional paths, and make the most of the opportunity that you have whilst you're still in law school to be able to, I guess, go broad and taste a bit of every part of the rainbow rather than falling into a deep sort of career path without first working out what you like and what you don't like. So that, you know, from a university perspective is go and do those extra negotiation competitions, or, you know, in ADR, I loved actually the alternative dispute resolution space back when I was in uni. I think if I were to become a lawyer, I would have gone to that space. But also like doing sort of pitch competitions, coming up with startup ideas, you know, doing internships in areas that aren't traditionally, you know, just legal technical, but in teams like Anna's and in teams like Caryn, and in new law firms like the one that Jess is working at Law Squared. So that would be my biggest piece of advice. Just go and expose yourself to all those different disciplinaries and work out what you like and what you don't like. Because fundamentally it's a different world, and you don't have to become that traditional kind of technical lawyer.
Absolutely. And the different world theme, we're going to hear a lot through that. And I think, you know, some folks that are listening might think, well, it was great to be able to do those internships when we could be there in person. But of course, not surprisingly, we've seen the rise of the virtual internship now, and not just for law firms, but for a whole bunch of those different businesses that you were speaking to, Evan. So if you can't be there in person, you can still be there. There's still those opportunities, which leads me, segue to you now, Jess, and that is that, you know, as folks are listening to this today and seeing us, we would have probably done this session in person, maybe even just a few months ago. But we're now in a situation where collaboration, where communication, pulling out some of those skills that Anna was particularly underscoring, really need to be done in this sort of environment, in a workplace where, for example, it's remote, if you like, as well as flexible. How do you see where we're sitting today as redefining our workspace, maybe even our workplace permanently? And how should folks listening today kind of start getting into the skills for the environment you're about to describe for us?
There's been a lot of transition over time. I mean, if we look back, you know, the typical environment was an office per lawyer in their private space where the door could be closed. That has, to some, transitioned into an open plan environment, which is something that we adopt at Law Squared to really try and advance the collaboration amongst different team members. To now, what has become, well, before COVID hit, we also had hot desking, which was quite prominent amongst the large corporate entities, which meant that there wasn't necessarily a seat for every person because they understood that there was flexibility in the workplace. Now, obviously, COVID has hit and we are all in the situation of having to work remotely. It has absolutely redefined what the future is going to look like. And I think not just in the legal space, but if we focus on what it means in the legal space itself, I think it's very clear that there is a significant amount of reliance on technology. And where we had particularly the, you know, we'll say the old school individuals that were used to doing things the old way, perhaps with a dictaphone and someone that would type out their work for them, that has all changed. You know, there's been so much transition that has taken place with the advancement of technology that's really assisted all of us to be able to work anywhere we want to be. For a very significant period of time, we had somebody at our workplace that was working out of New York because we could remotely work anywhere so long as we had the relevant facilities to do that. And so what we're seeing now, particularly in the litigation space, is that there really has been a streamline in court processes that have enabled us to work a lot more efficiently and effectively. I've conducted a trial that's been held on WebEx. The trial was in the Supreme Court in New South Wales, but we were dealing with a witness from her house and individuals that were based not only in Sydney, but also in Melbourne. So, you know, as a result of COVID, which of course hasn't been a good thing for us to experience, but from a professional side of that, we have been able to really identify what it is that we have capabilities to do and use the relevant facilities and processes that we have to streamline the way that we work and to make it ultimately more efficient and effective. So we're definitely going to see changes. We have, and I think a lot of that will continue. I've heard a lot from various people in the government departments. They put a lot of expense towards the relevant technologies that are in place to enable the legal practices to continue operating. And I don't think that that's going to be thrown away the moment the restrictions are lifted and we're able to go back to work. So we will definitely be seeing changes. We're experiencing them now, but I think that there will be long-term implications that will be positive. They won't necessarily be negative. And as a result, will offer some true flexibility to individuals within law firms, because it is proven that it does work. It is sufficient and appropriate, and it does work to be working from home remotely, flexibly, and I think we're going to see significant changes in that regard.
Absolutely. And folks, I would say as we turn to the second part of the session today, to reflect on what you've heard from all of the folks here and the description of their law firms, the workplace, workspace, work environment, when you think about your capabilities, because this is a really different situation. This description is really different from a traditional law firm. So it does kind of lead us into the next one, which is looking at capabilities, and we'll pick up a couple of the questions that are with us at the moment in this part of the discussion as well. But I wanted to start out with a question to you again, Jess. So we know we've got you fired up now, so we'll run with that. And that is that it's probably easy to just kind of get overwhelmed with the T-shaped lawyer or the many other shapes that are being used to describe them, and think, where do I start trying to work out what I should be focusing on, or what is the filter that I use to try and, basically put my best foot forward. Yeah. And so the question that I wanted to put to you is this: how important is it to know your strengths and to take a little bit of time to work that out before you run 100,000 kilometres pace ahead?
Yeah, look, I think knowing your strengths and also your weaknesses really gives you true insight into who you are and how you function as an individual, because the reality is we are all very, very different, and we all come with strengths and weaknesses. And many of the times this can complement a team rather than be a detrimental or impactful aspect to it. If you can't identify what your strengths are, then I guess you won't really be able to use that to your advantage and make the most of the opportunities that arise. So in the same regard, if you don't know what your weaknesses are, then you may find that certain things could hold you back. Now, by way of example, I used to be at another firm prior to Law Squared, and I've always been in the litigation team, but I had someone in the litigation team that was completely opposed to appearance work, meaning that she didn't want to be in front of a judge on her feet making submissions, because she found that really, really daunting. Now, we use that to work together collaboratively as a team. And what she loved doing was being behind the computer and writing out the submissions, but not necessarily being on her feet to present them. So we really utilised the skills of the team and said, okay, if that's what you're comfortable doing and that's what you're good at, then you exercise your skill set to prepare the relevant submissions, and then somebody else with the right skills who's prepared and comfortable and confident enough to be before a judge can then utilise the work that you've prepared sort of behind the scenes to present the submissions verbally before a judge. So, it's really, really important, I think, to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are and work off them. You can obviously focus on your weaknesses to make them better, but you can very well look at those strengths and really use them to your advantage. And a lot of firms offer a lot of training and a lot of different team environments to really help cultivate what those skills are. And so I would definitely recommend that you spend some time to reflect on what is your strength and what is your weakness, and focus on what they are and hone in on them to really utilize them to the best way possible.
Fantastic. Folks, I want to ask you all of this question because it's one that comes up repeatedly, and it's one that is probably for many folks the most confusing now as law students and as early career professionals. And that is the whole thing around digital literacy. So we've got a couple of questions here. You're not going to be surprised that we would have got them, I know. But I'm going to paraphrase and summarize them, which is, what tech do I actually need to know, and where do I go to find opportunities to get up to speed? And I am going to come to every one of you on this, but Anna, I'm going to start with you and say, I'm sitting here now, I'm trying to put my best foot forward. I know I need to be digitally literate. What do I need to know?
Great question. So I think I saw one of the Q&A questions. Number one, I think you've got to demand it of your lecturers. So if you're asking for it, I bet there's 10 other people around you that are also asking for it. So if you don't speak up, you don't get. That's one of my life's philosophies. So if you don't ask, you don't get. So lean on your lecturers, who should have really great networks, in order to perhaps get a small group of you. It may not be part of the curriculum. That's really difficult to get through easily, but they may be able to arrange a demo with Checkbox, or across the 4 or 5 kind of streams of legal technology. Because the other thing I want to point out is, it's actually quite easy to get to know who's in the legal zoo, legal tech zoo, and that's because we only have about 111 or maybe 12 legal tech outfits here in Australia. So that's actually not a lot to divide and conquer on. So I'd encourage you to be a little bit entrepreneurial and really create your own destiny by saying, do you know what, let's have a look at the top players in each of the streams. And you can look at, I'm happy to share some websites, and I'm sure Terry's got some websites on where you can go to. Arrange a demo with your mates. You can do it virtually, have a glass of wine, and check it out. So see it for yourself, and then you can draw some conclusions on how that might hark back to what you're currently studying. In fact, if you did that first and then went to your lecturer and said, hey, this is the initiative we took, now we're asking for more, I'd be super impressed if I were your lecturer. I think the other thing is, and the question that comes up a lot, is coding. I don't think you need to have a degree, a formal qualification in coding, but I, for instance, get the lawyers in my team, and I've completed as well, a Coding 101 course, which is free on General Assembly. There are also some great data analytics courses, workshops, which are free on General Assembly. So I think you need a basic working knowledge, just so that you can have a far more intelligent conversation and be relevant when you're working with functions that have a digital component. So IT, whether you're talking to legal tech providers, know some of the core basic language so that you have some sympathy for each other's roles and where the tensions might lie. I think the third thing is start networking. So LinkedIn is absolutely fabulous in terms of having access to thought leaders, to innovators, to entrepreneurs, and think outside of legal as well, because let's face it, the legal profession is not leading the tech revolution. In fact, we're incredibly behind. And so I'd really encourage you to follow the tech giants and those that are innovating or are entrepreneurial in tech outside of legal. I'll keep those as my top 3 because I know the others will have some to share too.
Brilliant, thank you. And what I'm taking away from that, I just want to underscore, is exposure is huge. And we started out with that recommendation, I think, at the very beginning. Get up to speed with what's happening in this different legal ecosystem. is incredibly important. And there's lots of meetups and various other things. We're very happy to share that with you that you can go to. I am going to put in a little plug here, if I may. The Centre for Legal Innovation runs a Legal Techy Tuesday virtual demo of legal tech about every 2 weeks. It's free, it's online. Evan has very kindly done one of those demos for us, and it was fantastic. In fact, Evan, as I recall, you kicked off the whole series for us last year.
I did.
So yeah, thank you for that. And it's kind of just keeps growing. So, you know, that's available to you all the time, anytime. But I did want to also, I know, Evan, you have thoughts about to code or not to code. So let me go to you next. And then Caryn, I'm going to get your thoughts on, you know, what tech do we actually need to focus on and where do we find it? So Evan, to code or not to code?
Yeah, very similar to answer to Anna's, to be honest. I think that, you know, particularly a few years ago, there was a big movement where people, like lawyers, were literally saying, oh, do it, like that exact question, to code or not to code. I think the takeaway is that at the end of the day, you don't need to be able to code to build a piece of software to be a good lawyer. You don't need to know how to, you know, actually code as a profession. But what you do need to know is have that base level of technical competency and understanding so that you have empathy for when you actually go and advise your clients and work with tech within your firm or your in-house team, right? This is really important because, again, I think it's unavoidable that technology is going to be a key part of the legal industry. And so if you're in private practice, you want to have that base understanding so that you're able to advise your clients on technology, not necessarily to build the technology, but to make the right decisions for them in terms of what solutions apply to their problems. And then on the opposite end, in-house teams now are becoming more and more tech savvy. You know, legal tech and legal operations as a movement is common speak in in-house teams. You know, where was very much definitely the focus sitting in law firms, it is now a big conversation in in-house teams as well. So if the in-house teams are, I guess, adopting technology like Checkbox, then as a law firm, you want to definitely be on top of those technologies that your clients are using as well. And so as lawyers being in those organizations, it is critical for you to be able to know it enough to make the right decisions, to make the right recommendations, not so much as coding to build your own sort of legal app. And I think it's also really important because the nature of technology is that it is so broad, and I guess the ability of technology is often misunderstood. So particularly with the more progressive types like AI, like machine learning, you know, like AI contract review, I think unless you actually get into enough detail and understanding into the technology side of how it's applied to legal, you can fall into the trap of believing that technology can do a lot more than it can. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I think we have the tendency to get lazy when it comes to technology and say, well, like that technology, like shouldn't it be able to do that? Like, why should I have to do it if we're adopting technology? Surely the technology can do that. So just understanding where the technology ends and where the lawyering or the expert human starts is also a very important piece in being able to be effective in today's world, I believe.
Caryn, that's a perfect segue to you, because I know that this is something that's near and dear to you as well, this kind of, you know, the emphasis on legal technical skills and obviously technology related skills and what folks really need to be thinking about and focusing on at this point in their career. So over to you.
Thank you. Absolutely. So it's really interesting because I can't tell you, Terry, how many times over the past few years G&T have been contacted by students through our website or the like, and have asked the question, you know, do I need to code to get a job within a law firm? And I've often had conversations with those sort of students. I think certainly we, and Evan alluded to this, we did put some of our lawyers about sort of 3 years ago or so through a coding course. I think it actually was through General Assembly as well. And really the motivation over there was certainly not for our lawyers to come out and be able to code. And I should say, you know, we often see like a combined degree of law as well as, you know, computer science or technology or the like as being incredibly valuable. So that's absolutely terrific and can really add a different dimension. But certainly when we talk about coding, it's more about identifying what technology is capable of. So, Anna alluded to this, Evan alluded to this from the in-house perspective, from the law firm perspective. What we really want is all our lawyers, when they are delivering legal services, to do it as efficiently and effectively as possible. And that means taking a real look at the way in which one is doing this with a lens of continuous improvement, so that they can say, you know what, I should not be doing this in the very manual way that I'm doing it. Technology can certainly assist with that. And if I reflect on the way in which we bring about or projects sort of develop within the organisation, or we identify particular technology solutions to deal with a particular pain point, it's exactly with that in mind. It's both top down as well as bottom up. I mean, my team and the leadership identify some areas, but on the flip side, we've got, summer clerks, graduates, lawyers sort of saying, you know what, there must be a better way of doing it. So I'm absolutely passionate about the fact that, yes, having a broad understanding of technology and its capability is really important. And another thing is, I do, and we generally find this, having proficiency in Word and Excel is certainly not where we often see students or lawyers. So I would encourage everyone on the call to get to grips with the basics and actually really understand its capability. I mean, Microsoft is incredibly powerful as well today, with 365 and the like. So really understanding its capability, I would say, is key. I agree with Evan, whilst we don't have a huge amount of providers in Australia in terms of in the legal tech space, and I agree with Anna in that you really want to immerse yourselves in this. I think one of the challenges is there is a lot of overlapping functionality, and it is quite a complex area. And to Evan's point around like AI, you really need to understand where its limitations are. And that takes a bit of understanding and a bit of getting used to the various products on the market to understand this is maybe what they promote, but this is actually what is achievable. So I would almost put some of that stuff to the side. And yes, definitely, what you provide, for example, through Techy Tuesday is an absolutely amazing foundation for students, I believe, and it gives you really good sort of insights around what is available on the market. But really just understanding what technology is capable of, and also getting on top of the Microsoft suite would be a really great first start.
Yeah. And look, all of you are kind of, to me, saying two really key things here. We're saying a lot of very key things, but two that come out in particular. And one of them is this thing around mindset change. As lawyers, we've tended to be very siloed. Even when we go to law school, we haven't necessarily, spent a lot of time in other professions or with other professions. But the sort of things that I think you were mentioning, or all of you are mentioning, things like hackathons and getting involved with looking at how working with other disciplines, even at that very early stage at university, is just preparing you for working in that multidisciplinary environment that you were all speaking to. And I think the tech, there's probably no one that's going to deliver a perfect solution for you. Do this course and you will find all that you need to know. It is that constant engagement and searching, and there's so much available. I think you mentioned, Anna, particularly for free, and certainly keep watching that space as far as the centre is concerned. But I wanted to pull those things out in particular, Jess, for you, because it seems to me that Law Squared, in many respects, was built fundamentally on those two principles: a different way of looking at things, a mindset shift, but also really with technology that automated, assisted and augmented practice. So tell us your thoughts about that in relation to, laser focus on digital literacy.
Yeah, look, I think it was very self-evident that there was a need to focus on what technology can offer. And as Caryn has mentioned, and Evan and Anna, it is really there to help assist us become more efficient in the role that we're in. It's not to replace lawyers in any way, but to work alongside them to make them better at what they do. And I guess Demetrio Zema, the founder of Law Squared, saw that opening, saw the need, and really wanted to fill that gap, to try and work alongside businesses to help them in what they're trying to achieve, but by using the relevant technology to really assist in doing that. And so that's really one of the primary factors as to how and why Law Squared was created, to really exemplify and utilise the relevant services that are already out there and perhaps some people are just not really aware of, to utilise it to the best of our ability.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
We've got a question here about COVID-19, and I guess, you know, we're in the situation that we're in now, and I want to put, again, this question to all of you, and firstly, if I may, to you, Anna, but how, if at all, do you think that COVID-19 has changed the industry, and where you'll see the sustained change in the broader ecosystem, if you like, once we all, hopefully not too far away, are kind of out of the current situation we find ourselves in?
I'll start with touched on, which is is to be in the office 3 days a week. And I've got 2 of my team members working interstate and overseas at the moment. And I mean, I've always had a bit of a forward-thinking philosophy around flexible work, so I've been working flexibly my whole in-house life. But I think it's going to normalise that, which is wonderful. I think lawyers will also be unafraid to say, do you know what, this isn't working for me, or just because it works for you, it doesn't mean that I'm functioning optimally. So I would tag all of that as more around eyes of the individual workplace. The analogy I give is that it doesn't work for my body. Some people can't function without eating something as soon as they get out of bed. I think the same goes for the work. We all have different things that make us optimal. And so I hope that that's the second
I think we're losing you.
I'll make is around
I think we're losing the connection a little bit, Anna. So I'm just going to hold that thought, and we'll come back to you.
It's forced.
But Jess, I'm going to jump to you, because one of the things that Anna was just mentioning, and I think has come particularly into focus, and I know something very near and dear to you, is the whole thing about balancing the demands of legal practice with mental health and well-being. So tell us a little bit about how that's in play, do you think, in terms of COVID-19 now and in the future? Yeah,
look, there was recently something released by the Victorian Law Society president saying that lawyers are prone to mental illness because of the high pressure environment that they find themselves in. And I think what we've seen over the years, and particularly over the last sort of 12 to 24 months, is a change in focus on the importance of highlighting mental illness and offering support mechanisms, which I think a lot of big corporate entities and law firms and businesses really offer now for all of their employees. What we tend to be finding is, as a result of working from home, you know, it's very hard to divide between work and private life because work is home at the moment. And particularly when we're facing the high level restrictions that really limit us from, you know, leaving the house, we're finding that a lot of people are probably working a lot more than they ordinarily would. And I'll be the first to put my hand up and say that at least applies to me, because the moment I wake up, I think, okay, I can just start working without, you know, having to worry about getting ready in the morning and commuting into work. And so, of course, productivity is high, but we don't want that to come at a cost of mental illness. And I think we're all potentially finding that it can be difficult in this season, particularly for those that can't leave the house or don't have other people that they can communicate with on a regular basis. And so mental health and wellbeing in the legal profession is an issue of critical importance. And I think what we've witnessed is a lot of people that can, you know, find themselves in a situation where they're just mentally exhausted and fatigued as a result of continuously putting a significant amount of work and hours and time into what they do. And what we really try and project at Law Squared is we want your private life to be just as happy as your professional life. because they will impact each other. And if you're not happy at work, then you won't be happy at home. And so it's very, very important that we collectively work together to really be there for one another, to ensure that, notwithstanding us having limitations around being home and working remotely, that we still try and do the best we can to connect with others, even if it is, over a Zoom call or even a phone call. So yeah, it's just something that I see has become quite prevalent over the years, and obviously has been heightened as a result of the situation that we find ourselves in now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jess. And I just want to come back to you and make sure that we heard all the bits from you, because we broke up a little bit in the middle.
I'm happy to open up the panel to the others.
Thank you. That's very generous. Folks, we've got just a few minutes left. So if you do have any other questions that you'd like to put to the panelists, please take the opportunity to drop that into the Q&A box at the end. I'm going to ask all of you this question and kind of do a bit of a round on it. And that is just in the spirit of what we were talking about before, I guess, your favorite technology or your favorite tech tool. And I'm going to grab this one and say Zoom. So I've started already. But just going around quickly. And I guess to help also the folks that are here to think about, some of the stuff that they could focus on in this as well. Evan, favorite tech tool or technology? Checkbox, perhaps?
No pressure, Evan.
I was going to say, I've only got one on my mind right now. It's right here.
Think out of the box, out of the checkbox now.
Okay. Hopefully someone else mentions checkbox then. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, for me, favorite technology. Oh man, I use so much. Okay, does it have to be legal related or just generally?
No, go for it, whatever you want.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is I'm just throwing this out there. I really love this app that I have on my phone. I've had it for a while. It's called Stocard. So Stocard, so your wallet,
I have it.
amount
I
of
love
cards
it.
you have. Do you use it, Terri?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's literally all of your loyalty cards, all of your cards, and it just stores it as a kind of like a digital version. So you don't actually have to carry it with you in like a clunky kind of wallet. And so I would never have, I never leave my cards at home because it's just always on my phone with me. Super easy.
Fantastic. Caryn, what's your favorite technology or tech tool?
Oh, I've got to say my iPhone.
Okay, all right, yeah.
I wouldn't survive without my iPhone in every regard. And in terms of apps, I would have to say, probably second to what Anna said, is LinkedIn.
All right, okay, LinkedIn.
Yeah, as a social media platform.
And that also, by the way, is a great thing to underscore for everyone here. If you're not on LinkedIn, why are you not on LinkedIn? Get on LinkedIn. Very, very important. Jess, favorite technology or tech tool?
Look, this is going to sound very unsophisticated, but I've got two things. The first one is PDF docs. In the litigation space, it is just absolute heaven to put all of our relevant legal documents together. In terms of an app, there is an app called Tiny Scanner, and it is unbelievably helpful. Whenever we I'm still writing file notes, I scan them and put them back into the file electronically. So they're the two that I would go for.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, I've started writing notes again because I'm no longer able to write. So I'm trying to actually re-educate myself on how to do that. Anna, we started with you, so we're going to come full circle and end with you. Favorite technology or tech tool?
Definitely our matter management tool, because I am obsessed with data, and it's been fabulous to be able to quantify our workload and how that's actually evolved during COVID.
Fantastic. What an amazing discussion. I said at the beginning, an amazing group of people and an amazing panel. I also know they are incredibly generous, and if you want to reach out to them, that you'll find them all on LinkedIn, if not in other places, on websites and stuff like that. I'd also like to mention to everyone here today, the Centre for Legal Innovation has a thing called the Legalpreneurs Lab, and we have a special interest group focused just on young legalpreneurs. So to go back to one of those questions and something that we all mentioned, if you do want to drop into one place where you can find a lot of information about stuff that's going on and is pretty much all for free, then let us know. Drop us a line at CLI, or make sure that's available in the notes for this as well. You're very welcome to join. Of course, we would offer that complimentary, so you would join for free. So everyone here, thank you very, very much. College of Law, delighted to be a part of this and that you've put this on. Our panelists, bravo, fantastic discussion. Always a pleasure to spend the time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Terri.
Bye everyone. Until
Bye.
next time.
Bye all.